If you've ever worked the graveyard shift at a gas station, you already know the hours between 2 and 4 a.m. feel stretched thin, like time itself is half asleep. That's when the regular rules don't always apply. People wander in who don't quite fit the rest of the world anymore. This happened to me around 3 a.m. during one of those shifts. I was alone, doors locked like always, buzzing people in one at a time, fluorescent lights humming overhead, mop buckets sloshing quietly as I cleaned the aisle near the drinks. Nothing dramatic, just another slow night. When I heard the buzzer, I glanced up out of habit. A woman stood outside the glass doors, extremely thin, blonde hair but thinning in a way that didn't look styled, more like it had given up. She was wearing what looked like pajamas, not dirty, not torn, just pajamas. That's not that weird, right? People come in dressed like that all the time at night. I buzzed her in, gave a quick, "Hey, how's it going?" and went back to mopping. A couple minutes passed, maybe 3. I felt that strange pressure you get when someone's looking at you. You know the feeling. You don't see it, but your body reacts before your brain catches up. I looked up. She was standing about 4 feet from the counter, just standing there, staring straight at me. Not aggressive, not angry, just completely blank. No blinking that I could see, no expression at all. It startled me enough that I laughed under my breath and said something like, "Can I help you?" Trying to keep it light. This is normal, right guys? People zone out sometimes. She didn't respond. She just kept staring. After a few seconds, longer than comfortable, she started slowly turning her head, scanning the store, shelves, cooler, door, but her eyes never left me. Even when she took a step, she moved sideways. At one point, she actually walked backward down an aisle, just so she wouldn't have to break eye contact. That's when my stomach tightened. I remember thinking, okay, that's unusual, but maybe she's on something. You see worse. She grabbed a few items, snacks, a drink, and eventually came up to the counter, still staring. Her lips were moving now, like she was talking, but no sound came out at first. I asked her to repeat herself, twice, 3 times. Each time her voice came out barely above a whisper, like it was dragging itself out of her throat. I finally caught the name of a cigarette brand. I turned, grabbed them, scanned everything, and she paid in cash. Exact change, which felt oddly deliberate. The whole time she didn't look at the register, or her money, or the counter. Just me. No emotion, no curiosity, like I was something pinned to a board. I couldn't wait for her to leave. As I slid her change toward her, her face changed. She smiled. Not wide, not friendly, just enough to show she could smile. And then she laughed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't sudden. It crawled out of her in this dry, raspy sound, like air scraping over something broken. Not a scream, not a giggle, more like a cackle she hadn't used in a long time. I froze, took a step back without meaning to, told her to have a good night. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. She didn't move, just stood there, laughing quietly, eyes locked on me. We stayed like that for what felt like forever, though it was probably only a minute or 2. Then she turned and walked out, backward, still staring, still laughing. Once the door shut behind her, the store felt louder somehow. I stood there for a while, heart racing, then shook it off. People are weird, people are high, people are broken. That's part of the job. About an hour later, I was mopping near the front windows when something slammed into the glass right beside me. I jumped so hard I nearly dropped the mop. She was there. Her hand was pressed flat against the window, face inches from the glass, laughing again. I could hear it faintly, muffled but unmistakable. When she saw me react, her laughter got louder. She started hitting the window, slow, deliberate smacks, not frantic, almost playful. I backed away and went straight behind the counter, then into the back room where the security monitors are. I watched her on the screens. She stayed there for 45 minutes, sometimes laughing, sometimes just standing still, sometimes hitting the glass once, like she wanted to remind me she hadn't left. Eventually, she wandered off down the sidewalk and disappeared into the dark. I didn't mop again that night. I've seen her a few times since then, just passing by outside. Same pajamas, same walk. She's never come back in, never looked at me again. And honestly, that's almost worse. I wasn't a gas station worker. I was just passing through. For a few years, I had to drive across multiple states to visit my mom. One stretch of that drive always cut through West Virginia, just briefly, but enough that I remember it clearly. And before anyone jumps to conclusions, I want to say this up front: most of West Virginia is genuinely beautiful. Mountains, forests, long, quiet roads, and most of the people I met were kind. But like anywhere else, there are pockets that feel different. I usually planned my fuel stops carefully when I drove through there. A lot of rural stations aren't self-service, some don't take cards, and many shut down early. So I made it a rule to stop only during daylight. It worked for years, until one trip when I didn't. I had taken a few detours to sightsee. Nothing dramatic, just scenic roads, overlooks, small highways that wind instead of cutting straight through. I didn't notice how much time had passed until the sky went completely dark and the gaslight came on. I still had close to 300 miles left. I told myself it was fine. There would be another station soon. There always is. The next gas station appeared suddenly, right off the road, like it had been dropped there and forgotten. No nearby buildings, no houses, just woods on all sides, pressing in close. Tall trees, no gaps, the kind of darkness that feels thick, not empty. I pulled in anyway. I parked under one of the lights near a pump. It hummed weakly overhead. The first thing I noticed was the pump itself, old metal, no card reader. Then the sign, not self-service, meaning I'd have to go inside. Okay, that's normal out here, right? That's what I told myself. I looked around again. No other cars, no sound except insects and the low buzz of electricity. Only a few lights worked. One lit the pump, another barely illuminated the front of the building. That one flickered irregularly, like it couldn't decide if it wanted to stay on. The building itself looked run down. The windows were so dirty they were almost opaque. I couldn't see inside at all. Not a silhouette, not movement, nothing. Just black glass reflecting my headlights. There was a neon open sign on the door. That's when I stepped out of the car. I took maybe 10 feet toward the entrance and stopped. Nothing had happened. No noise, no movement, no sudden fear spike. Just a heavy, quiet feeling settling in my chest, the kind where your body reacts before your thoughts catch up. I stood there, staring at the shop. I remember thinking, this is ridiculous. You're tired. You've been driving too long. But at the same time, every instinct I had was telling me this didn't feel right. The place felt staged, like a set that existed only for someone to walk into it. I checked my phone. No service. That made it worse. Not in a panic level worse, just enough to narrow my options. I glanced back at my car, then at the trees, then at the door again. The flickering light snapped off for a second and came back on. That's when the thought hit me. I can leave. I wasn't stranded yet. I still had a little fuel, enough to try something else. I walked back to my car without taking my eyes off the building. I half expected something to change once I turned around. The door opening, a shape appearing behind the glass, anything. Nothing happened. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment with the engine running, weighing my options. I could try to make it to another station. I could take the next exit and hope for a town. Worst case, I could pull over somewhere safe, sleep in my car, wait for daylight, and walk until I found cell service. Any of those options felt better than going inside. I pulled out and got back on the road. A few miles later, closer than I expected, I saw an exit sign. I took it immediately. The road led into a small town, actual streetlights, houses, a 24-hour gas station with clean windows, bright lights, and cars in the lot. I've never been so relieved to see a place that felt normal. Nothing happened after that. No one followed me, no sudden realization, no twist ending, and that's the part that still bothers me. Because logically, there was probably nothing wrong with that first station. I probably looked like the creepy one, pulling in, getting out, staring at the building, then leaving without explanation. If someone was inside, I might have freaked them out. But every time I think about that place, I'm glad I trusted my gut. Because sometimes it's not about what you see. It's about the feeling that tells you not to find out. My first job was at a local gas station. I was 18, fresh out of high school, and I worked there for almost 2 years. I tell people now that it was the worst job I've ever had, and they usually assume I mean the pay or the hours. That's not what I mean. The place itself wasn't unusual. Standard pumps out front, a small convenience store attached, bathrooms in the back, and a tiny kitchen where we made fried food that never quite lost the smell of grease. It was open late, and most nights staffing was thin, sometimes too thin. I should mention this up front. I'm a woman, and at that job, that mattered more than I realized at the time. One of my regular tasks was taking out the trash, inside and outside. There were no cameras covering the pumps back then, so if something happened, it happened out of sight. One night, close to midnight, I was pushing the trash cart between the pumps, picking up loose cups and wrappers. It was quiet, the kind of quiet where every sound carries. That's when a man walked up beside me. Late 20s, maybe early 30s, normal clothes, normal face. Nothing about him screamed danger at first. He smiled and asked casually if I had a boyfriend. I laughed, a nervous, automatic laugh. I said no. I regretted it immediately. He stayed close, too close as I kept walking. Then he asked how old I was. When I didn't answer right away, he guessed, asked if I was 15. That's when my stomach dropped. I said no, sharply this time. I let go of the cart and walked straight back inside without looking at him again. I hid in the kitchen until someone told me he'd driven off. No manager, no report, just another weird customer. That was the first time I realized how exposed I was out there. After that, things blurred together. Nights stopped feeling separate. They stacked. There was the man who came in clearly high on something, wandering the aisles and asking me to watch him try on cowboy hats. He'd put one on, tilt his head, and ask if he looked fashionable, over and over. He ended up buying every bottle of Pepsi we had, insisting he needed them all. He left with an older man I'd never seen before, white-haired, quiet, who kept running his hand slowly up and down the other man's back while they waited at the counter. It didn't feel dangerous, just wrong, like I'd stepped into something I wasn't supposed to see. Another night, a man started recording us on his phone. He zoomed in on my name tag. Then he started yelling my name across the store, loud enough that customers turned to look, over and over, like he was testing how much control he had. We asked him to leave. He refused. We called the cops. While we waited, he tried to start a fight with one of the cooks, a hot-headed kid I went to school with. Chairs scraped, voices rose. Nothing came of it, but my hands shook for an hour afterward. These weren't isolated incidents. They happened often enough that I stopped being surprised. I started expecting something every shift. That's what scared me the most, how quickly it became normal. The moment that stuck with me the longest happened late one night when I was sent to clean the bathrooms. There was a woman in there I recognized immediately, a regular. She was known for hanging around the parking lot, getting into trucks, stealing small things when she thought no one was watching. Everyone talked about her like a joke, harmless, they said. She was standing at the sink, staring into the mirror. She wore a cheap blonde wig, but it was crooked, sliding back off her head. Her face was red and blotchy. She'd clearly been crying. The bathroom smelled sharp and sour, like old cleaner and sweat. I tried to leave without saying anything. She turned and called me over. Up close, she looked exhausted, hollowed out. She asked me if she was pretty. The question caught me off guard. I told her yes, not because I believed it mattered, but because it felt like the safest answer. She smiled immediately, like I'd flipped a switch.
She fixed her wig, wiped her face, thanked me, and walked out. I didn't see her again for months. When she came back, I almost didn't recognize her. Her head was completely shaved. No wig, no makeup, same clothes, same walk. She didn't acknowledge me, didn't look at me at all. She bought a drink, paid, and left. I stood there afterwards staring at the counter, realizing something I hadn't let myself think before. None of these people felt like strangers anymore. They were familiar, predictable, and somehow that made it worse, like the gas station wasn't just attracting unsettling people, but slowly teaching me to accept them. I quit not long after that. Even now, years later, when I stop at a gas station late at night, I stay in the light, I lock my car, I keep my trips short. Because some places don't just show you how unsafe the world can be, they show you how easily you can get used to it.